This is 4.3, Multiply and Divide Mixed Numbers and Complex Fractions from OpenStax PreAlgebra. We'll start with the readiness quiz that will make sure that you remember and understand the concepts that we're going to build on. These are ones that you've already learned. So go ahead and pause the video, work these out on your own paper, and then start the video again to make sure that you got them correct. Let's go ahead and go through these. Number one, divide and reduce if possible. So let's go ahead and we're working with order of operations here, which means we're going to use our PEMDAS. So anything that's in parentheses we're going to do first. So we have two sets of parentheses. So we have 4 plus 5, that is equal to 9. And we have 10 minus 7, and that is equal to 3. There's no exponents, we did the parentheses. There's no multiplication, there is division. 9 divided by 3 is equal to 3, and then we're done. There's nothing else afterwards. So the answer to this one is 3. Order of operations and division, very important. Number 2, multiply and write the answer in simplified form. Another word for that you might have used would be reduced, right? Fractions always need to be reduced. And so we're going to multiply 1/8 times 2/3. Now remember, when you're multiplying, you can just multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is equal to 2, and 8 times 3 is equal to 24. Okay, so we've multiplied, but now we need to see if we can simplify it or reduce it. And so let's look at what we have. We have 2 over 24. 2 is a factor of both of those. 2 goes into 24 12 times, right? We can factor this out, and those 2's cancel out, so we're left with 1 divided by 12, and that would be the answer for the second one, 1/12. 3, convert 2 3/5 into an improper fraction. Remember, an improper fraction means that the number on the top of your fraction is going to be bigger than the number on the bottom. And so the way we do this, I'm going to rewrite it bigger. Oops, not 3, sorry. 2 3/5. The way we do this is we multiply this times this, multiply, and then add this, and we keep the same denominator. So we're going to keep the 5 on the bottom, but we're going to multiply 5 times 2, that's 10, and then 10 plus 3 is 13. So our improper fraction that is equal to 2 3/5 is 13/5. If you got any of those wrong, if you don't remember these concepts, please let me know. I can direct you to resources that will help you review this before moving on. So let's get into section A, multiply and divide mixed numbers. We've already multiplied and divided fractions, but now we're going to work with fractions when you have the mixed numbers. So you already know how to multiply and divide fractions and change mixed numbers to improper fractions. Now we will combine these skills to multiply and divide mixed numbers. So you already have all the skills you need to do this. We're just going to put them together. Let's look at this example. Example 4.37. Multiply 3 1/3 times 5/8. So previously you've multiplied fractions together, but you had a regular fraction times a regular fraction. Now you have a mixed number in here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. So let's go ahead and rewrite this as an improper fraction. I'll go ahead and do that down here. We have 3 1/3 is equal to, and we know that our improper fraction keeps the same denominator, but then we're going to multiply here and add here. Multiply and add. Okay. So 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So 3 1/3 is equal to 10/3. So I'm going to rewrite this this expression, but I'm going to replace 3 1/3 with 10/3. 10/3, and then the other one I can just leave the way it is because it's already just a normal fraction. 5/8. Okay. Now this looks like what we've done before. We've multiplied a fraction times a fraction. So we multiply straight across. 10 times 5 is 50, and 3 times 8 is 24. And then we can reduce this. What I see is I see that 2 goes into both of these evenly. So I'm going to factor this out. 2 times 25 is equal to 50. So that's another way we could write the top. 50 is equal to 2 times 25. And the bottom is 2 times 12. 24 is equal to 2 times 12. And then the 2's cancel out, right? If you have the same thing on the top and the bottom, and there's only multiplication on the top and on the bottom, you can cancel things out. And so that leaves us with 25 over 12. And this is reduced. There is no factor that goes into 25 and 12 evenly. And so we are finished in our reducing. Now, you'll notice this is an improper fraction. We have 25 over 12. It would be possible to rewrite that as 2 and 1/12, but in algebra, you always want to leave your answers as improper fractions. Leave as improper fraction. Okay, so we're going to leave it like this. We're not going to do anything with it. Same thing on your homework and on your assignment. Unless it says otherwise, go ahead and leave it as an improper fraction. When you get into higher math, doing something like this will just be one step in a string of different things that you're going to do. You don't want to change this into a mixed number and then have to change it back to an improper fraction in order to do the next step. So let's go ahead and have you try some problems. So multiply and write your answer in simplified form. You have 5 2/3 times 6/17 and 3/7 times 5 1/4. Notice in this one the mixed number is on the left, and on this one the mixed number is on the right. It doesn't matter, you're still going to do it the same way. So go ahead and pause the video, work it out, and see if you get the right answer. We're going to start on this one by changing 5 2/3 into an improper fraction. And so I'm going to multiply 3 times 5, that's 15. And then I'm going to add 2. 15 plus 2 is 17. And it keeps the same denominator, so it's over 3, times 6 divided by 17. Now I can rewrite this as 17 times 6 divided by 3 times 17. Right, that's one way to do it. And then I can see that 17 is here and 17 is here. And then I have 6/3, but I know that 6 is divisible by 3. So I can do 3 times 2 divided by 3, and I can cancel out those common factors, and I'm left with 2 divided by 1, which is equal to 2. This is one case where you would not want to leave it as an improper fraction. Anytime there's a 1 on the bottom, just get rid of the 1 and just use the whole number or the integer. So the answer to that one is 2. Okay, this one, 3/7 times 5 1/4. 3/7 stays the way it is. 5 1/4 we need to change to an improper fraction. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 1 is 21. And we keep the same denominator, which is 4. Now we're going to bring this together. 3 times 21 is equal to 7 times 4. And then I'm going to factor out this 21 because I know that a 7 is going to factor out. 21 is equal to 3 times 7. And then I'm going to have 7 times 4 on the bottom. And these 7's are going to cancel out. I'm left with 3 times 3, which is 9. And on the bottom, I'm left with 4, 9/4. And this is no longer reducible, so I'm going to leave it like that, right? I'm going to leave it as an improper fraction, 9 divided by 4. If you did not get these answers, go back and see what you did wrong. If you don't understand why it's wrong, go ahead and let me know so I can get you more resources. So let's go ahead and put this into words how we do this. So how to multiply or divide mixed numbers. First, you're going to convert the mixed numbers to an improper fractions. Next, you follow the rules for fraction, multiplication, or division. And 3, simplify if possible, right? You always want to have your answer in reduced terms. So let's go ahead and work through a few more examples with different types of problems. Example 4.38, multiply and write your answer in simplified form. So in this one is different because now we have two mixed numbers and one of them is negative. Notice this is a negative symbol. It does not mean minus. Okay, we're multiplying positive 2 and 5/4 by negative 1 and 7/8. So let's go ahead and start by changing these into improper fractions. The first one, 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14, and it keeps the same denominator, which is 5. And then we are going to do 8 times negative 1. Well, we know it's going to be negative. Let's just carry that negative over so we're not dealing with that. Let's do 8 times 1 is 8, plus 7 is 15, divided by 8. Notice I moved the negative sign up to the top of the fraction. When it's a mixed number, you just put the negative in front of the whole number, but when it's a fraction, you can move it up to the top. It doesn't really matter where it is, but I think it makes it less confusing if you put it on the top. That way you know it's not minus and it actually indicates a negative number. So let's go ahead and multiply this out. So we're on the top, we're going to have 14 times negative 15 divided by 5 times 8. Okay, and then we can pull out that negative and we can put it in front of the whole expression. So we'll do negative 14 times 15 divided by 5 times 8. And then I'm going to start factoring things out. I see that 15 has a 5 in it, right? 5 times 3, and I have a 5 down here. 14 does not have an 8 in it, but 14 and 8 both have 2's in them. So I'm going to go ahead and factor both of these. I'm going to factor 14 into 2 times 7, and I'm going to factor 15 into 3 times 5. And this one is the 5 stays, but I'm going to factor the 8 into 2 times 4. Okay, so now I'm going to look for things that are common and start canceling them out. I have 5 and 5. I have 2 and 2. That negative stays there. It does not disappear. And so then what I'm left with is 7 times 3, which is 21, and 4 on the bottom, and then that negative as well. Okay. So the answer to this one is negative 21/4. So if you start with two mixed numbers, don't freak out. You just change them both to improper fractions. If you have a negative number, it's okay. Just stick it in front of the top of your fraction is usually the easiest place to put it. So let's have you do some try it problems, see if you can do them. Pause the video, try these out, and then come back to see if you got them correct. The first one, 5 and 5/7 times negative 2 and 5/8. Go ahead and put them both into improper fractions. 7 times 5 is 35, and we're going to multiply or add 5 to that. So 35 plus 5 is 40, and it keeps the same denominator, 7ths. And we're going to multiply times negative 8 times 2 is 16, plus 5 is 21, and it keeps the same denominator, 8. So we can rewrite this as, I'm going to put the negative in the front, negative 40 times 21 divided by 7 times 8. Okay, so now I'm looking for common factors. I see that I have a 40 and an 8, and I know that 8 goes into 40 evenly. I also have a 7 and a 21, and I know that 7 goes into 21 evenly. Now let's say you don't remember your multiplication tables and you don't know that. You can factor these out to their prime numbers. So let's go ahead and do that. 40 to its prime numbers, and we have to keep the negative, would be 2 times 2, right? Negative 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 would be 8 times 5, and that's 40 in prime numbers. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 times 5 is 40. And then I can take 21 to its prime numbers, which would be 3 times 7. Okay, so I took all those, those two numbers all the way down to their primes, and then I could do the same thing on the bottom. 7 is prime, so it's going to stay. Prime for 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, so I have only prime numbers here, and now I can start canceling things out. So I cancel out 1, 2 on the top and 1, 2 on the bottom, right? There has to be a match on the top and the bottom. 1, 2 on the top, 1, 2 on the bottom, another 2, another 2. I have a 7 and a 7. And what I'm left with is 15 on the top, 1 on the bottom, which is equal to, oh, and I need that negative too. Make sure always, that's a common mistake. Obviously I make it, and students a lot of times will forget that negative. Make sure you carry that negative down. And the answer is negative 15. Okay, let's do this one on the bottom. Negative 3 and 2/5 times 4 and 1/6. So this is going to be negative. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17. And it keeps the same denominator. Times 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25. And same denominator. Okay, so I have negative 17, and then times 25 divided by 5 times 6. And then I could factor it out like this, or I could factor it out like we did before. Another way to do it is just to cross cancel within the fraction. 5 goes into 5 one time, 5 goes into 25 5 times, and then I'm left with negative 17 times 5 over 6. And then when I multiply those out, I'm going to get, those are all prime, so well, these two are prime, so there's no common factors to pull out, and I get negative 85 divided by 6, and that is reduced as far as it can go. So if you got these correct, great job. If not, go back and rework them and see what you did wrong. If you need help, let me know. Next, we are going to move on to dividing. Okay, so we've been multiplying, but you know that when we're dividing fractions, we are actually going to be multiplying. So it's not very much different. So we're going to do 3 4/7 divided by 5. The first thing we're going to do, same step as first when we're dividing, we're going to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 4 is 25. And then we keep the same denominator, which is 7, divided by 5. Okay, and then I'm going to change the 5 into a fraction. So 25 over 7 divided by 5 over 1. And then now remember, when we're dividing fractions, dividing by a fraction, we actually multiply by the reciprocal. So the first one stays the same, 25 over 7. But we're going to multiply times the reciprocal of 5 over 1, which is 1 over 5. Okay, and now there are a few ways we could do this. We could start crossing things out right now, or we can rewrite it. 25, we don't need to rewrite the 1. Anything times 1 is going to be itself. 7 times 5, which is equal to, and then, sorry, I wanted to factor out this 25. So it's 5 times 5 over 7 times 5. Can get rid of the 5's, and we're left with 5 over 7. 5/7 is our answer. Okay, so when we're dividing, starting here, it's the same steps. The only difference is that we started with division, and then we had to find the reciprocal and multiply. So you're going to now do some try-it problems of those types of problems. Pause the video, work them out, and see if you get them right. So for the first one, we need to change 4 3/8 into an improper fraction. 8 times 4 is 32, plus 3 is 35, and we keep the same denominator, keep the 8, divided by 7 over 1. Now we're going to change this division problem into a multiplication problem. 35 divided by 8 times 1 over 7. And then if I want to do the short way, I could say 7 goes into 7 one time, 7 goes into 35 5 times, and then I can multiply. 5 times 1 is 5, and then 8 times 1 is 8, and my answer is 5/8. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 5 is 21. Keep the same denominator, 8, divided by, I'm going to change my 3 into an improper fraction, 3 over 1. And then I'm going to change my division problem into a multiplication problem. 21 divided by 8 times 1 over 3. And then 3, I can see that 3 goes into 21 evenly. So 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 21 7 times. 7 times 1 is equal to 7. 8 times 1 is equal to 8, and the answer to this one is 7/8. Check your answer. If you didn't get it, please look back over it, see what you did wrong. Let me know if you have any questions. In this one, now we have dividing, but we have two mixed numbers. So you already have all the skills to do this. We're just throwing in an extra step of having to change two mixed numbers into improper fractions. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Keep the same denominator, 5 halves, divided by 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Keep the same denominator, fourths. Then we're going to change this into multiplication. So this looks just like the problems we just did. 5 over 2 times 4 over 5. Okay. And then I can choose to either rewrite this with all the terms on the top and on the bottom, or I can start canceling things out. Doesn't really matter. I think on this one I'll write all the terms out together. 5 times 4 divided by, that's a times dot there, 2 times 5. Okay, and I'm going to cancel those out. And I get 4 over 2, but I know that 4 over 2 can be reduced because that equals 2 times 2, and I have 2 on the bottom. Cancel out the 2's, and I get 2 over 1, which is equal to 2. So that is your answer. Okay, now it's your turn. Go ahead and pause the video and work out these triads and then come back to check your solutions. We'll start by changing 2 2/3 into an improper fraction. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8, and we keep the same denominator, which is 3, divided by 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, keep the same denominator. Change this to a multiplication problem. 8/3 times 3/4, right? The reciprocal of 4/3 is 3/4. And then we can, this one actually looks really nice to work with because I have a 3 on the top here and a 3 on the bottom. I can cancel those out. I also have an 8 on the top and a 4 on the bottom. I know that 4 divides evenly into both of those, so I'm going to divide that into there, and then here it goes in twice. So I'm left with 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom, which is equal to 2. And the last one, 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15. Same denominator is 4, divided by 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Keep the same denominator, 2. Then I'm going to change this to a multiplication problem. 15 over 4 times 2/3. I'm going to go ahead and factor out this 15 and this 4 as I rewrite it. 3 times 5 times 2, right? 3 times 5 is 15, times 2 times 2. And I'm going to factor this 4 into 2 times 2 times 3. Okay, so 4 is 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. Now I can cancel things out. I have a 3 on the top and a 3 on the bottom. I have a 2 on the bottom and a 2 on the top. And I'm left with 5 on the top and 2 on the bottom. My answer is 5/2. Now this is an improper fraction, but remember we're going to leave it as an improper fraction. We do not want to change it to a mixed number. Check your answers. If you need to, go back through them and rework them, see why you got them wrong. Please don't hesitate to ask me questions. You can find your assignment on Google Classroom. Please, 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 please reach out to me if you need help.